Alright, so we're going to build this thing from the ground up. What I've done is I've set up a style sheet from fluid to responsive.css, and in it I have got a default set of styles that will apply from 0 up to 321 pixels. So that will be the 4-column grid. Then I've got a media query starting with 321 pixels, which will represent the 8-column grid. So that's going to be 321 to 640. And then I'm going to do a 12-column grid based upon 641 pixels and above. And then we could do one for extra large if we wanted to really bring in larger screens, background screens for the things that are above that. I'm going to leave that off for now just because that's an unnecessary complication at this point. So what we need to do is work off of our diagram here, and we need to identify how this is going to work. So the first thing we've got, oops, I need to make sure I'm on the 4-column grid. Alright, so we're going to leave the background colors in there for now to let us visualize. Now I'm going to bring in the wrapper. Now you're going to have to be careful because there are multiple versions of this. So within the responsive, the style sheet we're working on, we've got the wrapper at the default level, but there's also, as you go down, you come to these media queries, and there's wrapper there, and there's wrapper there, and there's so that's the 3 that are represented in this. So you need to make sure that you're working on the one that you want to be working on. So this takes a pretty clear head about what you're doing while you're doing this. In fact, when I was doing the demonstration video, I put some code in the wrong section, and now I'm redoing it because it didn't work out too well. Okay, so we've got the wrapper. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to use the widgets just because that's the way that I prefer to do it. And so what we need to do is we need to center this, and we need to set it at 100%. So for position, I'm going to do 100% and not pixels. For layout, we don't need to do anything. For box, we're going to align this in the center of the page. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to do margin right auto and margin left auto. And for the wrapper, that should be all that we have to do. Now let's get into our header. And in our header, the first thing that I'm going to add is I'm going to add the width, which is 93.75%. Oops. And I want to use the percent over here just to be consistent. If you're typing it into one of the windows, then you're more than welcome to do it that way. For the box on this, again, it's going to be centered, and we use the auto margin left and auto margin right, and that will center it within the containing div that it's sitting within. So that establishes our header. Now I'm going to go to the nav. And I'm going to go first to the position to put in the percentages. The percentage is from the math that you did for your application. The layout on this is that this should actually be all the way over. There isn't a margin there. But what we want to do is we want to float this to the left, and we want to set the width. We already did that. Set the width to 73%, and we want to set this margin at 0. And I believe that's going to take care of that. That puts our navigation over on the side. And okay, it's looking good so far. We've done our header and our navigation. So now I come into the main body. Okay, we got a 93.75% width. And again, we want this centered in the containing div. So we're going to set our margins left and right to auto. As long as you have a set width, whether it's in percentage or pixels, you can use the left and right to center it within whatever containing div you have. So our main body has 93.75 and those two margins, and that is all that is in there. Okay, so for our left, okay, this one is going to be 100%. Because it is taking up the full width of the main body. And because it is taking up the entire thing in that section, we don't have to do any additional information because it's going to span the entire thing. So the auto margins and all that is just code that you would not need to use. And if you don't need to use it, there's no good reason to use it. Center is going to be very similar. %. Right. Now, did you notice what I just did? I went to scroll this one and I scrolled this one. So I was looking at something that I wasn't working on. So you got to be really careful about how you use this interface because this is tricky stuff and it can throw you off. Left, center, right. Now I need to do my footer. And my footer is 93.75%. And this will be centered in the page because there isn't a containing div there. So I need to look at the box and I set the right margin and the left margin to auto. Now what I want to do, I want to go ahead and comment out the rest of this just to make sure that what I'm doing is clean. So I'm gonna put a comment in there just temporarily, and I'm going to comment out all of the stuff that I'm not using at this particular junction Even though I've set this information in there, I don't want it to be applying right now, because I want to see how the work that I'm doing at this moment is working without being overridden in the cascade. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to publish it. And I bring this document over, and that looks very narrow to me right now. So what do we got going on? Our wrapper, we've got it 100%. Our header, we've got it 93.75. Okay, our nav, we have in pixels, we want that 0%. Here we go. This is what happened. I didn't get one of them right. So in the main body, I had put 93.75 pixels as the position, and I want that to be percentages. And while I'm in here, I might as well look and see if I've done that anywhere else. Okay, so I'm going to save that, upload it, and see what we got. Okay. So we've got what we need here. You will notice that the preamble is floating up next to the navigation, and we don't want to have that. So what I have done is I'm giving this a div of upper main that sits around that preamble. And what I want to do is for that upper main, I want to give it a rule. So you're going to face the same kind of thing as you're going along, where you'll find that you need to add something extra here or there, or tweak it in order for it to work the way that you expect it to. And what I want this to do is I just want to have that as a clear both. And that cleared that down so that it didn't go up into that navigation. The other thing is that the main body is kicking up here next to the navigation as well. So in the main body, I want to do the same thing with the clears. And you notice how it pops down there so that it's not going up into its space. So this is behaving as I would expect it to. It's going to behave the same way at all widths because it's the only one that we have in place right now. And everything looks as it should look at this moment in time. Okay, so now we'll go on to the second part, which is the 8 column. And I'm going to zoom this out a little bit so that you can see all 8 columns. Okay, so I've commented out this 12 or the 8 column grid section. I'm going to take that comment off just to open it back up. And I'm doing this just because it is a way that allows me to build the structure in there before I actually start coding, but turn it off so that it isn't visible. You could wait to add this media query until you are ready to go. So I'm now ready to go. So our wrapper, and you'll notice again I'm coming in here, and the same kind of interface is available for Dreamweaver. And I'm going to modify the style. The pencil icon works in Dreamweaver. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to do my position a width of 100%. And that's the only thing that I need to do with the position, unless I want it centered in the page, and I do. And you'll notice that this is redundant, but I'm not grabbing the code from up above, just simply because there's enough things that are different that I've found that you can get into trouble when you start grabbing code and copying and pasting. If you're not really focused on what you're doing, you can cause it to do things that you weren't expecting, and it's not always clear why. And so I'm just trying to avoid that. So I'm working in my header here, and my header is 96.875%. And I want to make sure that I've got the margins set on both sides to auto, so that it'll take up and use that space that is available to it. I could go ahead and put in percentages or pixels for that, but I want it to center no matter what size the page is, so I'm using the auto instead. And I think that just about does it. Now I need to do the nav, and so on and so forth. Go through each of these. So I'm going to actually copy this percentage because it's a long one. And I'm going to take that percentage sign off, and I'm going to use this for percentage, just because sometimes it gets a little bit funky in the way that you interact with it if you do that sort of thing. So I prefer to use the tools that the widget gives me. And in this case, in the last one, we wanted it centered. In this, or over to the left. In this one, we want it centered. So that gives us an opportunity to once again use the right auto, left auto, because we gave it a width of 74 point something or other %. So that's all I really have to set for that. That sets my nav, and if we come into here, we'll be able to see. We won't really be able to see because the screen isn't large enough. That they're all lining up in the center here, but that's grabbing it from the previous style sheet, so we can't depend upon that unless we preview it in a browser, and we can do that. You can either save it or you can preview it. I'm going to just use Internet Explorer 9. Okay, so that's where it kicks, that kicking point where it goes from the default, which is up to 321 pixels, to 0 to that, and then it kicks up to this one. And so we've got the initial portion of that. We've got our nav sitting off to the side, and it shouldn't be. So let's look at the nav. Okay, and this is a good place to look at what we've done, because it's grabbing this from up here. We've got margin right set to 0% up here. We've got it floating left. So the nav down below should be set to auto. It's still floating to the left. So what it's doing is it's grabbing that rule from up above. So maybe a better way to... Let's go look at our diagram and see what those numbers should be. So let's take the math approach to this, and we'll see that if I get my calculator out here, what we've got is on this side we've got 80 pixels because there's the 60, the 10 margin, and the 10 margin here. So we've got 80 pixels there divided by 620. So 80 divided by 620 equals, so we want to do this as our percent, and we'll see how that works. And I'm just converting it to the percent, moving the decimal 2 points in order to do that. And now you see that it's sitting in the center as it should, because it's now able to, instead of using the auto, which isn't overriding the more specific rule of 0, then that allows it to override that rule. Moving on to our main body, that's this one here. It's 96.875%. And again, we're going to be letting that automatically center itself in the page. And then now we get a little bit more tricky because we have these things that want to float around next to each other. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose the left. And let's look at what that left is going to be. First off, let's give the position, because that's the easiest thing to plug in there. And it's this long number that we came up with in doing our mathematics. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to calculate what the borders are going to be. So in the left one, there is no margin, so the margin is 0%. And the right is the 10 pixels, but we need to put it into perspective. So it's 10 divided by 620, because we're looking at the main body. Even though it's part of the left thing, we're looking at the main body. So bringing up the calculator again, we clear that out and we use 10 divided by 620 to come up with that number, and we will plug that in and adjust for the decimal points. So that is the margin, and so the left is 0, the right we adjust the decimal by 2 points to get 1.61, etc. That gives us the first half of this gutter. Now this one's going to be exactly the opposite of this one. So the left and the center in this case are going to be opposite because they're both floating out towards the edges and leaving the gutter in the center. I'm going to copy this number because I'm going to need that again. While I have that in here, I'm going to go ahead and I have that number copied, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in as a left hand percentage in the margin, and then I'll come back over here and get that width again. Now these two need to be floating in order to be up next to each other. And I didn't put the float on the last one, so we need to make sure we do that. So I need to come in here and I'm going to float that to the left. And that's the center one. And I don't need to put any clears on it because it needs to float next to the left one. So we click OK. Then I need to come back to the left one and I need to modify that style. And I need to make sure that that is floating to the left and that the clear is both, so that it doesn't float up next to whatever content is above it. So I click OK on that. Then we'll take care of this right one in the footer and we'll see what we've got going. Okay, so the right one is fairly easy. The position, the width is 100% because it's using up the whole space that it has been allotted. And there is, we're going to put a float on it. We're going to float it right, but we're also going to clear both because we don't want that to pop up next to these other two elements. So we've got the layout, the position, and the background. And now let's do the footer and then we'll take a look at it. The footer is fairly straightforward. We put our percentage in there and we take care of the margins. Now let's save all that and let's take a look at it in a browser. Okay. So you see our footer has floated up underneath those two sections. We'll take care of that when we give it the rules in a few minutes. So we're looking at the a larger screen now, and you'll see that we have our three sections, two that are side by side, one sitting underneath it, and our footer has floated up underneath, as I mentioned. Everything else is as it should be. we got a little bit of untidiness right here. So we may want to end up floating that to the right so that it hugs this border over here because it's grabbing a margin. So I want to go in and adjust. I want to check the margins and I want to check the float on this. That is the right, and I've got it floating right, clearing both. So let's go up and see it. There's nothing there that would make that behave that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and look, because as you recall, it's still applying these rules from up above. So it's got a width of 100%, which would be overridden. And so I'm not exactly clear why that is behaving the way it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add rules there to get it over there to where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do, make sure I'm in the right location. I've been working on the 12 column grid and the right. And what I'm going to do is go in and I'm going to adjust that. And the way that I'm going to adjust that, I'm going to come into this box and I'm going to put a right margin of 0%. Let's check just what that one thing does. And that's what sometimes it comes down to. Try a single thing and check it. Because you don't want to put in more code than you have to get it to do what you want it to do. So I'm going to preview that in the browser again and reload that, and it hasn't moved over there. So I'm going to have to think about that and troubleshoot that a little bit later on. So let's move forward with this. And let's get that footer taken care of. Okay, so looking at our footer needs to be 96.875%. We've already done that. But we need to set it so that it doesn't float up past those others. So we are going to turn on a float. We're going to put it left, and we're going to give it a clear of both so that it won't float up past that. And we'll come back over in here. And now you'll notice that our footer is back down here. It's not underneath this element anymore. Okay, here's where my problem was. I was adjusting the right, and it's the center one. So I want to change that float to right. Save that, and we'll preview it again. Sure enough, there it is. All right, so that takes care of that one. Now what we need to do is the 12 column grid, and we go through that in the same way, looking at our widths, our floats, our clears, and our margins to make sure that we get the layout that we had in our diagram. And you can see from all my open windows, I've been doing a lot of troubleshooting to make sure that I get this as close to right as possible. And so then the last thing that we need to do is this 960 grid, or the 12 column grid based on 960 pixels, and that's going to apply to anything 641 pixels and up. So go through and do that and finish it up, and then you'll have your full grid laid out. Make sure that if you had commented this out, so if you're following me step by step through this, that you get rid of those comments so that it works the way that it's supposed to. And I will put up the rather than make you watch me work my way through this next one, I will put up the code so that you can see what I end up with. Okay, so I've gone through and I have done all the coding here, and the one thing that you'll need to watch out about is, let me pull it up, the site in front of you. If you were doing this on your own, what ends up happening is, oh, that's the wrong screen. What ends up happening is that this section, it's the right, it ends up pulling from the cascade of the 8 column, and the 8 column has a clear of both on that right so that it stays below. So if you have it so that the presentation is showing up without, sorry about that, if you have it let me try and show you that again. If you have it so that this is sitting down below and over on this side, it's because it's got the clear on both. And what you need to do is, when you go through and you get down to this last section, you need to set the clear to none so that it overrides that rule of clear both, because as you recall, any rules that it led at the minimum width of 320 are still going to apply unless you override them at the minimum width of 640. And so that is the aspect that you need to understand about this. This basic website is, the first time you're doing this, is a little harder to do than you might imagine. But once you get the hang of it, there's some really cool things that we can do. And that wraps up this part of the lesson. And from now on, we'll move on now to more advanced CSS so that we can start making this not just lay out the way that we want it to, but so that we can really start to tweak the presentation with some of the cool stuff that comes with CSS 3.